Hey guys, thank you so much for everybody who was able to come to curriculum night. I know that it's not always the most convenient and can be difficult for families to get to, so I wanted to record this presentation for everybody who wasn't able to be there tonight so that you guys can also see what's going on in your kids' classroom. First of all, let me say how thankful I am to be your kids' teacher. They are doing phenomenal this year, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit about what we do in our classroom. So, here you go. Here's a little bit about me and my family. This is my husband. We've been married for 21 years, and he is currently serving as the middle school interim principal. He was the dean of students in high school. This is our oldest son, Caleb. He is 21 and getting ready to move to Ohio with his girlfriend. He currently lives in Alabama. And then this is my daughter, Riley. She is 19 and she lives in Boca Raton, Florida. And then this is our youngest son, Caden, who is 18, and he plans to move to Florida in the next couple of weeks. My husband and I are both working on our doctorate, and I am excited because I am a couple weeks away from doing the first part of my defense, and that's just exciting to get to that part of the program. All that to say, we are super busy people, and it's good. All right, let's see here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our classroom. Obviously, I do things a little bit differently, which I'm sure you can tell by now. I kind of want to explain a little bit of the why behind it. A lot of the information that I'm going to share with you, you already know because I have already sent this with you at the beginning of the school year. I like to get ahead of things and make sure you understand what you're getting into with your kid being in my class. But I'm going to go ahead and walk through all of this with you for those of you that just want a refresher or, might go into some more detail on some stuff that we're doing. I am a relationship first teacher. I think if your kid doesn't feel safe and valued, then learning's not going to happen. And so I try to make sure that I build genuine connections with every kid. I think that every one of my students has a story to tell, and they are so much more than just their test scores. I'm very much the teacher who, whenever they get a bad grade, I'm like, shake it off. It's not that big of a deal, it's just a grade. They are so much more to me than a test score. I don't put a lot of pressure on them. Yes, we're here to learn. Yes, academics are important. I'm not saying that it's not. I just happen to have the philosophy of one bad test does not really define who you are, and it's just a test grade. In the scheme of life, it's going to be okay, especially here in second grade. I also think that learning should be fun. I am very big on hands-on activities and memorable learning experiences. I can promise you that what looks like just a fun day of play in our classroom, there's actually a real educational goal behind it. I think that kids stay engaged when they're excited about learning. In our classroom, it is nothing for me to shout out, shark bait, and they all have to go, ooh, ha, ha, and slap the desk. It keeps them on their toes. Sometimes I'll go, give me 2 claps and a Ric Flair, woo, and they have to do different chants and different call and responses. And I'll just shout them out randomly to make sure they're all paying attention. I'm also that kind of teacher that if we are not all engaged, I don't count it as engagement. So if we are doing a phonics drill and I've told them to, tap out a word or do whatever activity we're doing, and they're not all with me, I'll say things like, oops, we missed a friend, we'll do that again. And I make sure that everyone is involved. If kids are zoned out or not paying attention, then it does me absolutely no good. I'm not actually getting my lesson across to everybody. This also looks like whenever I call them to attention and someone is still talking, we'll wait until everyone is ready. I hold them to a really high standard. I don't expect perfection, but I also don't allow laziness. And so if we're not all engaged and we're not all doing it, we'll do it again until we get it right. I believe that every kid learns differently. So in my classroom, I'm sure you've seen it. We do a lot of flexible seating. I want the kids to be in charge of choosing what helps them to focus best. I also like to provide them multiple ways to show what they know. I also believe that every kid is intelligent in their own way, and I like to make sure that we celebrate all types of intelligence. We are not allowed to say things in our classroom like, that's easy. We really emphasize the fact that God made your brain the way that he did for a reason, and that every single kid is capable of learning in their own way. And we don't say the word easy because what's easy for one person might be actually challenging for somebody else, and we never want to put our friends down. So we kind of celebrate all the different ways of learning in our classroom. We especially do that with our homework. We do weekly homework instead of daily. I understand that everyone has busy schedules, and in the past, it can be really difficult to get homework back whenever we assign nightly homework. So I have found that sending out homework that is on Monday and you turn it in on Friday just works better. It allows everybody the freedom and flexibility that they need to, have a life outside of school. School should not just be everything you do. I also strongly encourage family relationships, and so I like to provide activities that you guys can do as a family as an option as well, just to kind of create that, a school-home relationship. In the past, I would send home math homework that was based on the lesson that was taught that day. And I kept running into a problem where we weren't able to complete the math book, or I was having to reteach the lesson the next day, because as much as you guys mean well, it is very challenging for you all to teach something that you don't necessarily know how I've taught them in school that day. Our math curriculum is set up where we learn, I always tell the kids 18,000 ways of doing it, and then you're going to pick your favorite way at the end. So if you go home and show them a way that's not that day's lesson, or it's a few days ahead, it's really hard for me as a teacher. So instead, what I like to do is provide review work, doing that spiral review method, where I'm sending home something that they've already mastered from the week before. We were encouraged this year to do as much choice-based homework as possible. Dr. Apgar gave an example of how when he was a kid, he could sit there and write his spelling words all day long, but he never actually memorized them because he was so focused on writing the words properly. And so he encouraged us this year, any way possible, to give choice-based homework. So you're going to notice that your kids' activities for spelling are different every week, because I'm allowing them to pick one assignment that works best for them. And then they're able to, or two assignments, they're able to pick their favorite kind of way of learning. And I do realize that not every single sheet is going to have a spot for all 20 words, and that's okay. That's kind of by design. We want to make sure that the kids are learning in a way that, connects with them and their brain in the way that they learn best. So some kids are drawing pictures, some kids are, writing in different colors. They're all designed to give them options. It also helps them feel in control and in power of, one small thing. And I'm very much a fan of, if I can let them have a win, I'm going to let them have that win, and if that makes them feel good about themselves, I'm good with it. I love to build strong family partnerships with you guys. You probably have already received a positive email about your kid. If not, be on the lookout. I love to communicate with you often about the strengths that your kid has. I strongly believe that you praise kids 10 times more than you correct them, because kids naturally want to please, and they are going to rise to that challenge. They don't want to disappoint any of the adults in their life. So you're going to notice that I am going to send you frequent emails telling you how much I love and adore your kid. I also understand that there are situations where you need me to handle your kid with care. Maybe they had a bad day, they didn't sleep good, whatever the case may be. Just send me a text, let me know, send me an email. Sometimes that looks like we throw aside our learning for the day, if there's some extreme situation or circumstance, and take care of that kid's heart. I believe very strongly that it's more important sometimes to take care of that kid's heart and make sure that they're okay, because if they're not okay, it's really difficult to get any kind of learning accomplished. So we've had some extreme circumstances where we're like, okay, this isn't working and we need to take care of this kid. So as a class, we'll kind of rally around that kid and whatever's going on. So definitely let me know if there's something that you need us to handle with care. They're kept private, unless you want us to share, but just FYI, completely understand. I love to attend your kids' activities outside of school whenever possible. I can't make it to everything, but I do really try. It's great because I really build strong relationships with the families through that. I still have kids in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade who I'll go in their stuff. They'll send me their schedules still, which I just love being able to build those relationships that, go across grade level. So I am really big on student leadership this year. What that's going to look like is during parent-teacher conferences, your child is actually going to be a part of our conferences. They are going to present to you what they have learned this year. They are going to be setting goals. They're going to be able to share with you their progress. They're going to share with you their strengths, their weaknesses, etc. And it's kind of like their own little self-evaluation. I do this because I want kids to build advocacy skills and learn to ask when they need stuff. I also want them to learn how to speak confidently and set goals. And I also just want them to kind of take responsibility and ownership over the learning process. So I'm really excited to try that this year. This is new for me, but I'm really excited because the kids are really excited about this. So in our classroom, I don't call them rules. I call them expectations. I do that because I feel like when you say rules, there's automatically like a negative connotation in their mind. And so I prefer to say expectations. And these are just the behaviors that are expected of you in our classroom. So we have 4 expectations and we have 4 consequences. Expectation number 1 is to listen and follow directions. Expectation 2 is to stay on task. Number 3 is to keep your hands and feet to yourself. And number 4 is to respect your classmates, teachers, and school. I feel like everything kind of falls under one of those categories, and I don't really need a lot of rules. Those 4 rules kind of cover everything. And whenever a kid breaks a rule, I can just be like, hey, what rule did you break? What did you do wrong? And I can just kind of point to the rules that are on the wall. It just kind of covers the bases with all 4 of those rules. Then our consequences. The first one, it's just a reminder card, and I will grab a little card and I'll stick it on their desk, and I'm just like, hey, remember, you broke rule number or expectation number 1. And that's all that's said. Like, it's not a consequence, it's not a punishment, it's just, hey, a reminder. And I tell them that even grown-ups need reminders sometimes too, and that this just helps us to know what we're supposed to do and to stay on, obeying the rules of our class or expectations of our class. Consequence number 2, so say you broke one of our expectations and you got the reminder card, and then you broke another expectation. I will just say, go sit in the sideline, and they will grab all their stuff and they will go sit in the sideline chair. Now, if they happen to be in sideline while there's a brain break going on, they have to miss it. And it's teaching them natural consequences for the choices that they make. They are allowed to let us know when they're ready to get out of sideline. They can kind of make a little signal or let us know, hey, I think I'm done now. I'm ready to come back and make better choices. And we let them go back to the class. Or come back to the tables where they're working with their friends again. If the behaviors, are not correcting themselves and we have another expectation broken, at this point we'll have a conversation either with Miss Hannah or myself. We call it a think space. We usually step out into the hallway or we'll go sit at our picnic tables outside and we will have a conversation. What choices could you have made better? How could we have fixed this? What are we going to do to correct this in the future? And that's it. Like, we move on. I'm very grace-based, and I want to teach them that, you can mess up, but we have a chance to redeem those mistakes. And then if we break 4 expectations, and it could be any 4 throughout the day, we get to a note home. At this point, I'm sending you a note, and the kid is expected to get it signed and sent back to school the next day. I do this to make sure that they're actually telling you that they did something wrong. And the note will just kind of have some little check marks. They did not follow expectation 1, 2, 3, whatever. And if they do not bring that note back the next day, I give them my phone and I say, let's call mom, let's call dad, and let them know what happened yesterday. And then they have to call you and they have to say, hey, I had a note yesterday and I didn't show it to you. I have to have that signed and sent back to school tomorrow. I will say that it's kind of rare to get to either one of these 2 consequences. Typically the reminder card and the sideline does it. But every now and then we do have those odd situations, and they always want to know, like, what part do we go to Dr. Apgar? And I try not to send them to Dr. Apgar because I don't want them to view him as, just a disciplinarian. And also I feel like it kind of undermines my own authority in the classroom. Like, I can handle my stuff, and I don't want him to be like this person that they fear. And some kids actually just want to go to his office and hang out. So we kind of try to keep things under control in our own classroom space. I believe in positive discipline. I prefer to focus on teaching them better choices, not really punishments. I also want to give them multiple chances to self-correct their behavior before I have to get in touch with you. I also believe that this separates the behavior from the child. We have a saying in our class that says, no matter what happened today, tomorrow is a new day. And I want them to understand that just because they made a bad choice or they broke our classroom expectations, it doesn't mean that they are a bad person. They just had a bad day or they made a bad choice, and our choices do have consequences. This is something new for our classroom this year. We are practicing classroom magic. This kind of ties into the whole leadership thing. One of the big things for us is eye contact. And so I am teaching them to make eye contact when you talk to someone or give them your attention. It shows them that you're interested in what they have to say. The A is accept your mistakes and failures so you can learn from them. And that's the whole concept of grace. I don't really accept excuses from kids. I'm like, nope, you just made a bad choice and there are consequences, but tomorrow's a new day. G, get up and go for it and make yourself heard. I want them to feel empowered and feel in control and feel like this is that self-advocacy piece. If they need something, let us know. I also don't want them to be shy or embarrassed to stand up. I want them to like take ownership of it and get up and, just try. The I, there is no I in team. Whoops. This is just like sometimes you have to put the group goals ahead of your own individual wants. And then C, we celebrate the successes of others when it's not your time to shine. That one comes into play a lot whenever we are giving out the pets for the week and their name doesn't come up on the little spinner thing. We still clap and cheer because it will be their time eventually. So that's our whole classroom magic concept that they're working on. Our class jobs. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about these. So I was reading a book this summer and it's called When Kids Lead. And it was all about empowering kids to be leaders in the classroom. And it talked about how if you give kids jobs that have a meaningful responsibility behind it, or it's something that could be like a real world application, that transfers beyond the classroom. It also talks about how you're teaching them life skills like organization, communication, and all that stuff, and you're helping build peer relationships, and you also give every kid a chance to contribute. So what this looked like in our classroom is we put up 6 jobs on the board. I went through all of the descriptions of what the jobs were, and then I let the kids tell me their top picks. And then from there, we went through an interview process, and I was like, why do you think you'd be good at this? Tell me about that. And then we did some on-the-job training where we talked about how to do this job and what we do. And then they had some practice, and then they were able to put their jobs into play. So the 6 jobs that we have in our class are the literary resource manager. Basically, that person just passes out the papers and passes out the books. The entrance and exit coordinator, that is just the door holders. I'm going to skip number 3. I'll come back to it. Number 4 is the navigation coordinator. That's just our line leader in our caboose. They kind of keep the class all together. Number 5 is our environmental maintenance supervisor. They're in charge of the cleanup. And then our workspace organization coordinator, they kind of help with the organization piece of our classroom. Number 3 is the director of first impressions. This job is probably the most coveted job in the classroom. This job looks like if Dr. Apgar comes into our classroom, which he did today, the directors of first impressions will get up and they will walk over to the door. It doesn't matter if I'm teaching or doing anything. They're allowed to quietly get up without causing distractions. They go walk over to the door and they will open up the door. Of course, Ms. Hannah or I have let them know that it's a safe person to open the door for. They're not just opening the door for strangers. And they will walk over to the door and they'll say, hello, Dr. Apgar, how are you today? And they have to make eye contact and they reach out their hand and they give him a firm handshake and then they invite him into the classroom. So it's just a really cool job that they are all excited about. We had some visitors to our school the other day and they got to introduce themselves, and our 2 girls went over to him and were like, I'm so-and-so and I'm so-and-so. Welcome to our school. Welcome to Miss Simpson's classroom. Those people were so impressed that they put in an application for their kids to join our school. So it was kind of cool to see how that's making an impact already. So it's a very coveted job. I know that all of our jobs are, but even like the kids, there's 6 kids who are on vacation for the month and they are very disappointed to not have a job. But again, we promised them, it's not your time to shine, but your turn's coming. So, it's just building a good team collaboration in our classroom. Okay, now we're on to the curriculum part. So we use Big Ideas Math. This year your kids are going to learn numbers up to 1,000. They're going to do skip counting by 5s, 10s, and 100s. We're going to be recognizing patterns. We are big on addition and subtraction in 2nd grade. We're doing place value, measurement, and geometry, and they have to solve very difficult real-world problems using various strategies. Our curriculum is challenging and it is a little bit hard, and sometimes it's confusing because we're going to teach 18,000 methods of solving a problem, but at the end they're just going to choose the way that connects with them the best. This really does work because kids are able to use hands-on manipulatives and they're able to draw, and it just helps those kids who learn and think differently so that every single kid can connect with one way of solving a problem that works best for them. We do calculators. Those are our math drills that we do every day. They are quizzed on these once a week on Mondays. They are all addition and subtraction facts. Depending on what level they're on, they have either 2 or 3 minutes to solve all the problems. We are grading them on speed and accuracy, so it's very important that they pick up the pace a little bit if they're a little bit slower with their facts. It is a weekly quiz grade, and we do grade it accurately. So if there's, 10 problems, they're going to be 10 points each. If there's 20 problems, they're 5 points each, etc. And every level has a different number of facts. The homework that they take home will match their level that they're on, and then they have to have an 80 or above to level up, and they can only stay on each level for 2 weeks. We're kind of pushing them to excel through. The facts will repeat themselves, but we just are trying to keep them on pace because sometimes kids will just get stuck on a certain level. So we're kind of pushing them along this year. Our reading program, I want to explain something. Our program is very, very rigorous. It is not just testing them on whether or not they can read and answer questions. It is asking them to use critical thinking skills. It's measuring them at a deep comprehension level, and it's checking their analysis skills. It is completely normal to see low scores, especially at the first quarter and probably the third quarter. The first quarter, they're trying to figure out how to take these tests. The third quarter, we're pushing them to do it more independently, and so those are when we typically see some lower scores. We do a lot of informational text, and they just don't enjoy those stories. They're not fun to read. They're not engaging. They're just part of life. We have to be able to read things and learn. In second grade, we really are focusing on reading to learn, not learning to read. If they struggle with reading, we're working on that in phonics. A lot of times parents will be like, my kid was really great in first grade reading. What's going on? And it may not be that your kid struggles with reading. They're just struggling with the complex thinking components. So we are gauging the sophisticated skills that are just challenging because this part of their brain is being developed at this age. They're working on analyzing a text. They even have to go back and find answers in the text and use those words to explain their answers. So it's just a challenging skill, especially for 7 and 8 year olds. But it is something we will practice all year long, and they do get better at it. If your kid is ever really struggling, I'm able to put notes on their test and say, they struggled with this concept or that concept or whatever. I can give you very specific data of what your kid was struggling with, but I just don't want you to freak out because sometimes the scores are going to be low. It doesn't mean your kid was not paying attention or whatever. Sometimes it does, but typically I can say, they just struggled with a certain concept or whatever. We do allow open book, and a lot of times they will not go get their book, and I'm not going to force them to do it, but I do say, these tools are available to you and you should probably use the tools that are given to you. But at the same time, I'm trying to teach them to think independently and be more, self-motivated learners. And so I'm not going to force them to go get their book, but I do say, hey, you should probably look in your book. You're going to find the answers there. So you'll see that we write open book on all the tests so that if you do see lower scores on their test, just understand that it's reflecting the critical thinking requirements. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily failing in reading. Your child is just developing those skills right now. We are going to do 4 novel studies this year. We're going to do Mercy Watson, we're going to do The Boxcar Children, Question of the Yams, and A Certain Small Shepherd. We do Question of the Yams for Missions Week, and then we do A Certain Small Shepherd for our Christmas story. Anyway, these are just the 4 novel studies we do this year. Our phonics is new this year for us, and so our spelling goes along with our phonics. We do whole group explicit instruction of the new phonics patterns, and then we will break down into small groups using decodable books. The books contain the sounds that the students have already learned, plus some sight words, and it allows them to immediately be able to apply the new skill in a connected text. We are focusing on accuracy, reading rate, expression, phrasing, and intonation this year. You'll see these little weekly worksheets up here, and that's what we send home with you, and that's their spelling words right there. There are 18 words that are on the list. 2 of them, the list number 17 and 18, are always a challenge word. And then we also throw in 4 surprise words, so there's a total of 22 words on their test. These 2 challenge words are bonuses. They are not counted against them, but they can earn them extra points if they get them correct. And then there are, like I said, the 4 surprise words that test them over the pattern that we've been learning this week to see if they've paid attention to the phonics skill. We do a spiral approach. Okay, so our phonics and spelling, it kind of spirals. So as we introduce the skills, they're revisited multiple times throughout the year, and every time we go back, it just builds a deeper mastery of that skill. It helps make sure that students don't forget the previously learned skills. We want to kind of give them the tools where they can crack the code so that they can read fluently with accuracy, speed, and expression. This kind of sets them up for reading success and comprehension skills. All right, let's see here. Grammar this year, we're going to do sentences and structure, nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives and articles, adverbs, prepositions, prepositional phrases, punctuation, and abbreviations. So we kind of cover a lot in grammar. Our handwriting, we work on perfecting our manuscript, and we will introduce the concept of cursive. Handwriting is graded on an ESPN scale. E is 100, S is 90, P is 80, and then an N is 70. We don't expect them to write perfectly in cursive, but when they get to third grade, they will be pushing it a lot more. So we're just kind of giving them the introduction, and they get so excited about cursive because it's something new they just look forward to every year. IEW writing, we teach students how to write using the IEW method. Students will learn how to make keyword outlines, and then they turn that into paragraphs. They will write up to 3 paragraph papers in second grade, and I believe that there are about 5 or 6 sentences per paragraph. We are teaching mystery science. In science, we focus on plants, animals, earth surfaces, material properties, and states of matter. In our social studies, we use Studies Weekly. We teach geography and economics. We alternate between the two. Right now, we're teaching social studies, and then the next 9 weeks, we'll switch over to science. We do 2 musical programs a year. One is based on our science curriculum. It's the 1950s show called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. That is amazing, and that'll be later on in the year. And then our first one is based on our social studies curriculum. It's called Stars and Stripes Forever. Aiming for October for that one, but I'll let you know for sure. But we do start practice next week on that. We use Deep Roots Bible. We're going to be studying the life of Jesus, and we learn about who he is, his character, and how we can apply those principles to our own lives. They do have to memorize verses weekly. To be quite honest, we do not practice them much in class because we just don't have a lot of time for that. Plus, we're also learning the chapel verses and the chapel questions, so we kind of focus more on that. And we just send home the verses and stuff for you guys. You did get sent home all the study guides for the entire first 9 weeks of school, and we'll continue to send those home. We'll just send it home every 9 weeks. It's easier for us if we just go ahead and send you all that up front, and it's also easier, hopefully, for you because you have a list and you can just hang that list up on your fridge and you'll know like which verses for which week. We do alternate between an oral assessment and a written assessment. The written assessment is the study guide. So it'll be a study guide except it's not filled in, basically, and it'll just be a fill in the blank for the Bible verse down there. And they do have a word bank, and everything they need to know is on that paper, but it is 100% exactly like the study guide. So as long as you studied that, you're good to go. MAPS testing, I want to explain a little bit about that real quick. We do NWEA MAPS testing. We do this 3 times a year. We've already completed our fall assessment. We're going to do it again in the winter, and then we'll do it in the end of the year at the spring. In second grade, we're tested over reading, math, and language skills. This is a computer adaptive assessment, and it will adjust to each child's level, and it pinpoints their current skills, and it also pinpoints the weaknesses, and then it will give us some next steps that we can take. It's not graded. It's very low stakes. We use this to differentiate our instruction and help us figure out like which kids would work it best in which groups. We help them set learning goals, and it helps us to give targeted support. It also kind of guides our instruction. As a private school, we don't necessarily meet all the North Carolina state standards because we're not a public school and we're not required to. But this helps us kind of figure out where the gaps are and what we need to work on and how we can, best make sure that we're meeting all the needs of all of our students. This is not a grade level proficiency assessment, and we do not use this information to retain students. That's not what this is for. That's about it. I know obviously you can't ask me any questions because this is a video, but if you do have questions after watching all of this long talk, you can definitely send me an email. I'm happy to explain anything further to you or, answer any questions that you have. We were asked to share our Amazon wish list. No obligation whatsoever. You guys have already been amazing with all your support and encouragement and donations to our classroom, and I'm very, very thankful for all of you. Thank you guys again for your time, and like I said, if you have any questions, please send me a text. You guys have my phone number, or you're welcome to send me an email. I would love to respond to you guys, and answer any questions you guys have. Thank you so much for your time and have a great night.